Hi everyone, welcome back to iMumz Ask Me Anything session. So today we have a topic that has been requested by many of you, and a very important one for that matter. And so while we were trying to think of a doctor who could speak on this, I think Dr. Preeti Galagali has been like the first thought because she's been a pioneer of child and adolescent health, not only physical but emotional as well. So she's been uh, promoting this for the last 3 decades, and she's been helping out so many babies and teens in Karnataka, Bangalore to be specific. So we're very excited to have you with us, ma'am, and all over to you.
Thank you so much, Anusuya. It's a pleasure to be here today. And the topic is very interesting and extremely important: gentle parenting. We all aspire to be parents, I'm sure. Most of us do. And the statistics says that nearly 87% of the adult population are actually parents. And there is no higher calling than being a parent. We want our children to grow into happy, responsible, resilient adults who can easily attain their potential. But while they are growing into such kind of adults, we also want them to cherish the memories of their childhood and even babyhood. In words of Subhadra Kumari Chauhan, the famous Indian poet, I'm sure we would want that our children, when they grow up, they look at their childhood and say, बार बार आती है मुझको मधुर याद बचपन तेरी गया ले गया तू जीवन की सबसे मस्त खुशी मेरी. So, what about gentle parenting? And gentle parenting ensures just that. The child becomes resilient, independent, happy, able to attain his potential as an adult and enjoys his childhood and babyhood. And so does the parent. The home environment becomes a joyful living place. In the next few minutes, let me just talk to you about what is gentle parenting, what are its advantages, which we already said a bit in brief now. Also, I would like to tell you, when do we start being a gentle parent? And lastly, I'm going to share with you some practical tips about how we could implement gentle parenting in our daily life. You must understand that each child is unique, each parent is unique, and so is each family. So it's easy to understand that one style of parenting does not fit all. What I'm going to share with you in the next few minutes are the nuts and bolts of gentle parenting. It is up to you to make the customized machine of gentle parenting that fits your child and your parent and you as a parent the best. So, coming back to the question, what is gentle parenting? So, do you know a panda? When you look at a panda, another way of describing gentle parenting is panda parenting. So, when you look at a panda and you picturize it in your mind, the panda is cuddly, warm, and yes, not grumpy, but smiling. And that's how exactly a parent should be. A parent who wants to adopt gentle parenting. And gentle parenting has four pillars or four principles. And these are empathy, respect, understanding, and boundaries. So, what do I mean by empathy? When a child cries out for a toy, you understand that this is a small child and toys are really important for him. You don't just overreact and scream and shout, and this is not the way to ask, why are you screaming? So that is empathy, putting yourself into the other person's shoes. You need to have respect. A child who wants a toy very desperately in the toy shop starts screaming and shouting, and a parent reacts by screaming and shouting back. Now, if you were upset in real life and you did not achieve your goals and you felt crying or maybe sometimes even screaming, what would you want the other family members to do? You would want them to console you. And that is exactly what the child wants. So, another rule of gentle parenting is treat the child as you want yourself to be treated. The third principle is understanding. Again, understanding, very close to empathy, but also understanding that children achieve different things at different developmental ages. For example, you want your child to be toilet trained. Now, toilet training, the earliest age is actually 2 to 3 years, and a 1 year baby simply cannot be toilet trained. So, you must understand the normal development of your child to really become a gentle parent. And the fourth principle is boundaries. Boundaries means rules and regulations, but they are rules which are flexible and sometimes strict rules like hitting other people, not allowed, right? But if you're having a stomach ache, if you're having fever, if you cannot keep your toys in place, it is okay. Also, rules and boundaries for a healthy lifestyle. For example, for older children or for children beyond 3 years who do co viewing of digital gadgets with their parents, no gadgets before 1 hour of sleep time, no gadgets on the dining table. So, these are the kind of boundaries which you need to establish, thereby differentiating gentle parenting from permissive parenting, where there are no boundaries and the children tend to grow up as spoiled brats. Also, there's a difference from authoritarian parenting, which is Hitler like parenting, which is the tiger mom parenting, where corporal punishment is the way to really discipline the child. This also differentiates from the uninvolved parent who just simply does not have time to parent the child. So you would understand that gentle parenting is in fact the best style of parenting, and in olden days it was called as authoritative parenting style. And there is a lot of research backing this up that parents who follow this parenting style have children who have less behavioral issues, have even higher cognitive skills and developmental skills. Now that I'm talking about parenting, I also want to make it clear that we believe in co-parenting. That is, both mother and father have an equal role in parenting. And yes, grandparents, other uncles and aunts can assist the parents, and definitely they can do that. But the primary caregivers, if parents are there, should be both of them together. And if not, if there is a single parent family, then also it is okay. But it's good to have a collaboration with the other parent, even if it is a family where the parents have separated. So, how early do you want to start being a gentle parent? Being an adolescent health specialist, I often get children to me in the adolescent age group with lot of behavioral issues, where the parent says, my child simply does not understand me, he does not follow the rules, because the parent has started communicating with the child in the adolescent age group. that's too late. So, if you are a gentle parent, I would request all of you to adopt this parenting style right from the birth of your baby. A gentle parent is extremely responsive to the baby's need of love, care, affection. A gentle parent is also responsive to the crying of the baby, for the feeding cues, for the potty cues, and for lifting up cues, and the cues for demanding attention. So, this is how early that one has to decide to become a responsive parent. Do you want to be a responsive parent even before the child is born? As a pediatrician, I would say yes. And research is showing that the first 1,000 days of life, which includes pregnancy even, are so important for really nurturing child development. So, responsive parenting it starts when you plan to have a baby, when you decide who's going to take care of the baby, who's going to help the mother or the father with the baby, which parent is going to work, which parent is going to work from home. All these things are important. Is the mother getting a nutritious diet? Is she healthy mentally, physically, socially? All these things. Is the father supportive? Are the other family members supportive? When you decide all this, even before you plan to get pregnant, you are being a gentle parent. And when you are pregnant, touching the womb, talking to the baby, giving those slight touches on the womb, yes, the baby can hear, the baby can feel, and this nurtures good neurological development of the baby. So, how early? Start as early when you start planning your pregnancy. And why is this so important? As I said before, that research is showing that 80% of the brain growth actually completes by 2 years of age. So, parenting, nutrition, health is so very important in the first 2 years of life, and so is early learning, safety, and security of the baby. So, all these components are the components of nurturing care for early childhood development. Gentle parenting or responsive caregiving is the glue which binds all these components of nurturing care. Not only is the brain development maximum in the first 2 years, but also is the ability of the child to learn sensory motor skills, social skills, language skills, even arithmetic skills, the maximum in the first 3 years of life, and more so in the first 2 years. The third important thing is attachment patterns. Attachment patterns between a caregiver and a child are actually established in the first 2 years. And why are they so important? They are important because they lay the foundation of forming relationships not only in childhood but throughout life. There are mainly four types of attachment patterns. The first one is a secure attachment pattern. That is, when the caregiver is available, mostly we say it is the mother, but a father can also be a caregiver, and so can be a grandmother or an uncle or aunt. So the caregiver is there when the child needs her, needs him or her. So simply, if the child is crying and the caregiver picks up the child, the caregiver is available to fulfill the needs of the child at that moment, and this would set the pattern of a secure attachment. That is, the child, when he grows up, he realizes that there are people around him with whom he can form trusting relationships. So he gives it a try. The second kind of attachment is an insecure attachment where the mother or the caregiver is simply not available. The child is crying and there is nobody to look after the child. So this can be of different types. One is the avoidant. That is, the mother or the caregiver just simply refuses to look at the child. At this point of time, I must also mention it is a possibility that the mother or the caregiver has a mental disorder like depression or anxiety, and if that is treated well, the attachment patterns can be in fact converted into a secure pattern provided the intervention is done in the first 2 years. After first 2 years of life, the attachment pattern actually gets set. The third type of attachment pattern is ambivalent, where sometimes the caregiver is available and sometimes the caregiver is not available. And this keeps the child very, very confused. And the last type of attachment pattern is disorganized, where there's a lot of corporal punishment and abuse of the child, physical and emotional abuse. And you can understand all these insecure attachment patterns. Actually, when the child grows up, he grows up as an insecure individual. He is not at all, he's very wary of relationships, does not even sometimes form a relationship, or sometimes forms fickle multiple relationships. So a gentle parenting actually encourages a secure attachment. So, gentle parenting very important for early childhood development and lifelong learning and health and attachment patterns. Now, coming to the last part of my talk here, what are the practical tips? And if I were to share with you, just there are many practical tips that which you could follow, and when you read up, you'll find. But let me keep it very simple. 5 practical tips. So the first important tip is put on your oxygen mask first. You have often heard this in when you travel by the aircraft before you help others. So that is what is parenting about. Please look after yourself. If you have a physical issue or a mental or a psychological issue, please do not hesitate to seek help, because a healthy and happy parent can nurture a healthy and happy child. So that is one. The second thing is marital conflicts. There is nothing that pains a child at any age when their parents are fighting with each other. So, if there is something like this, please make sure that you get appropriate counseling. And the third thing is about looking after yourself. We all make mistakes. So, what I told you today, we'll tell you today in the next few minutes, or maybe what I've already told you. If you have not been following that, please don't blame yourself, because every day is a new day and we can all change for the better. So be kind to yourself, be ready to imbibe new parenting principles, be flexible. As I say that, also understand that child behavior is also regulated by the child's temperament, by the parent's personality, by the environment, and yes, by the parenting style. So, parenting style does contribute, but some children are very difficult to manage. They are difficult temperament child who are very irritable, who do not accept breastfeeding very easily. They cry a lot. They get colicky pain, and this is something which is genetic. There are some children who have a warm temperament, who get easily adjusted, always smiling, happy-go-lucky babies. And there's another set of temperament which are slow to warm. They are a little anxious kind of babies. They take some time to start breastfeeding. When the strangers come to the room, they might even cry out aloud and they may cling to the parent. So these are the slow to warm temperament. Of course, parents' parenting style also greatly influences, and so does the environment. So if there are financial stresses in the family, definitely has an effect on child behavior, and the COVID-19 itself is actually affecting child development and behavior in a big way. But there's a silver lining here. Both parents are at home and the children are actually blessed to have their parents with them for longer periods of time. So, if something goes wrong with the child, please don't take all the blame on yourself and do not hesitate to seek professional help. So, the first thing is take care of yourself and also put on your oxygen mask first. The second important tip that I would like to share with you is to understand normative child development. For example, the social smile, the child responding to your verbal cues or to your facial cues comes at around 6 to 8 weeks. And we say after 2 months, the child hatches socially. So the child starts cooing at around 2 to 4 months, and it's a delightful period for the parent. At 6 months, the child reaches out for a rattle and starts, shifting it from one hand to the other hand. At 9 months, the child loves to play peekaboo, starts crawling. At 1 year, usually, they would start walking. At and the maximum age for that is 15 months. Usually, if a child is not able to walk by 15 months, we do get a little more vigilant about it and try to look for causes why the child is not able to walk. The first words usually come around the age of 1 year, and by the age of 2 years, we expect them to have a vocabulary of 50 to 100 words. And if it is not so, we have to look for the causes. And a child usually becomes totally dry by the age of 5 years. So these are some of the clues which you should understand about normal development so that you can closely follow your child development, and you should not have unreasonable expectations from the child. Again, this would give you a clue about what are the toys that are required for the child. For example, a tricycle at the age of 3 years, a skipping rope at the age of 5 years. So these are some of the things which you should be familiar about, and this will help you to become a gentle parent. The third important thing to really remember is that as parents, you need to really master the art of communication, positive discipline, and unconditional love. So you tell your child, I will give you a kiss, or you will be my favorite child only if you keep your room clean, or after your play, you keep your things in the cupboard. This is a conditional love. Definitely, you can guide them, definitely, you can discipline them, but there should be no preconditions to love. And what is discipline? I talk about positive discipline. Discipline is actually derived from a Latin word called disciplinare, that means to teach. Discipline is not punishment. Discipline is to teach socially acceptable behavior, to follow a healthy lifestyle for health over the entire lifespan. So, discipline is best taught by role modeling. You want the child to keep his room clean or to throw the bits of paper into the dustbin, show him how to do it. It is often said that children may not listen to their parents, but they would actually follow their actions very, very, very sincerely, and they like to copycat their parents. So, whatever you want, the behavior you want, you should be able to actually show it to them. Coming to communication, communication with a newborn baby is mostly by touch and sound. And as they grow up, you communicate with them by your words, by your tone of the tone of your voice, always very loving and caring. You also communicate by showing them different things in the environment. You also communicate by reading out books to them. How early do you want to read books to them? You can actually read books to them as early as 8 to 9 months, and some specialists say even at 6 months. Books is a fantastic way to enhance learning and improving communication. All of us get angry. It's natural to be angry. After all, anger is an emotion. But the way we express it actually teaches our children how to express and regulate their own emotions. So, when, like I said, a child is crying and screaming, and if you cry and scream, that is actually not role modeling appropriate emotion. A child wants a mobile which is there, and you don't want the child to take the mobile. Instead of telling this 9-month old, don't touch the mobile, instead of giving so many negative commands, don't do this, don't do that, tell the child what to do. Telling the child what to do is a positive command. You can throw a soft ball at the child and say, catch. And children do get distracted. So the child's attention would be distracted away from the mobile towards the ball. And this is only possible if you are calm enough to think about the alternatives. And that is what discipline is all about, telling the child what is appropriate behavior. A child puts his hand and tries to go through the railing of a terrace. Now, that is dangerous. That is one time when you have to actually tell this child not to do that, and probably put a wire mesh on the railing so that the safety of the child is ensured. So, mastering the art of communication, positive discipline, and giving unconditional love is extremely, extremely important. The next very important point is role modeling, and I have already emphasized this again and again. If a parent puts down the phone and spends joyful, playful time with the child, this child will never ever pick up a mobile phone, because he knows that there is a lot of other things to have fun with. A child who does not know the importance of play, toys, and interaction with the other near and dear ones around him or her is the one who gets actually attracted to the mobile. So, parents, first role model healthy media use yourself, and children will follow suit. And the same thing goes for exercise, healthy nutrition, sleeping, and also, like I said before, emotional regulation. The last most important point, please spend, as I said, quality time. But let me tell you, for younger children, and especially for those who are less than 2 years, they require their parents with them, to interact with them, to play with them, to tickle them. And that can be only possible with quantity time. So remember to spend both quality and quantity time with the children. And if you take care of yourself, you understand normal child development, if you could give unconditional love to your children, learn how to communicate and do positive disciplining, also taking care of yourself, also role modeling healthy lifestyle, and spending quality and quantity time, you have gentle parenting right on your tips. So that is all from my end for today, and I would welcome questions.
What a wonderful talk, ma'am. Like, really, really inspiring and so simple. Like, you've made it sound so simple. So I'll just start taking up the queries that I receive frequently from our users. I think the common discussion today was how to balance, like you said, how important quantity time is with the baby, especially in the first 2 years. And most of the moms in our circle are new moms in iMumz group, right? So now they are struggling to find a balance between joining their work. Probably they've finished their 6 months of maternity leave. Now, husband is also working from home, is on calls all day. Now, how do you suggest that they handle this situation as to they also have to sit and log in at 9 and sit till 6? So this is, I think, a difficult time they are facing. So what do you suggest?
Yes, I totally kind of, can empathize with such a situation, being a mother myself and having undergone that same period when the children were small. And Definitely small children are very demanding and they require time. So I would just suggest to mothers and fathers both that you could probably, divide time into what is very essential. So, like for example, feeding the child, bathing the child, there absolutely, no compromise on that. And if you could decide between each other that who would look after at that particular time. I can also understand that some of you may have important meetings, important deadlines to meet, and obviously the time that you spend with your child would be dependent on that. And what does research really say? What is the minimum time? So, when I said there's no compromise on feeding and bathing the child, taking care of the potty needs of the child, the minimum play time, which has been recommended for a parent, for a child who can sit, and as I would say, sitting, this comes at around 8 months, is 30 minutes. So, we call it as 30 minutes of ground time. We would love it if each parent can spend so much of time individually with the child and as a family together. So if I put it roughly, it would actually come 1 hour of playtime. So if you're lucky enough to have other help at home who can take care of the basic needs, then I would say at least spend 1 hour of playtime or fun time with a child who's less than 3 years. I don't know whether that makes it simpler. The more time you spend, the better it is, obviously. But at least this would be the minimum time would be required. And I think it's very important to be on the same page with your husband to make him also understand that. And also, if there are other people at home, maybe the grandparents or other helpers at home, to actually train them on gentle parenting. Because who's a parent? A parent is an individual who spends time with the child consistently over a long period, and it has an influence on the health of the child. So, parent is not only a biological parent, but that parent could be a helper in the house, could be a grandparent or an uncle or aunt. So, I think it's a good idea to have ground rules established, and I'm sure you'll be able to balance it. People do a lot of balancing. I know most of the management trainings have a big session on time management. So, when you know what is the minimum and what are the most essential things to do, you could actually make a kind of time management around that.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Coming to the topic that you have already touched. So now the mothers have become more inquisitive, wanting to learn, become better versions of themselves. But then it was not so probably 30 years back. It was just feeding, just the essential part. Nobody cared about the play and mental health and emotional upbringing and all that. So now they seem to be having a lot of clashes at home. हमने भी बच्चे पाले हैं. So you just read up something on Google and then start imposing this on us. So how do they balance this? I think this is like a struggle they are facing every day. Maybe it is baby-led weaning or anything for that matter, right? They are trying to incorporate these new things, probably gentle parenting, probably trying not to say no too many times so that baby does not lose the value of the word. So, how do we get other family members on board? Is I think something that our mothers would really learn to love to know.
Yeah, so that's a good question, and I often get this question in my clinic also. Yes, so it is a challenge, I agree. But also, let me tell you that, times have changed, definitely. And so a little bit of parenting has also changed. If you look at our present generation or a generation before ours, parents didn't do a pretty, I mean, I think they did a pretty good job with what the circumstances were there. So I think we need to empathize with that. And as they're older, their brain neurons get fixed and they get fixed to their ideas. So I think once you're dealing with older senior citizens in the house, the first thing to be develop is empathy. Try to understand their point of view, try to develop a good relationship with them, and and put forth your new ideas with a little bit of understanding their version also. And I think negotiation is the key. Now, all this is easier said than done, but I think again, having both the father and mother on the same page is important, because I think a mother would be able to easily convince her parents than what her husband could, and the father could be able to convince his parents with the because of the bond that they share. So it should not be that the daughter-in-law is taking the full, the full responsibility of parenting, and she's to handle her in-laws. That's going to be tough for her. Sometimes allowing the husband to talk to his parents may be a easier way out. The third way could be to involve your pediatrician. So I often do that in my clinical practice. I sometimes say, okay, call the grandparent, I will talk to her. And once a professional talks about the kind of parenting you want to, really put into practice, it does make a difference. But I think the ultimate, really, the foundation is your relationship with the senior citizen at home, which makes a great deal of difference. We as pediatricians are always ready to help and chip in.
Extremely helpful. I think that's a very, very good idea to have a good relationship with the in-laws. So I see Gayatri has a question for you. I'm a working mother and my child keeps observing the laptop while she's working. Now, will that influence him into taking up gadgets earlier? And like how much screen time is recommended? How can they avoid it? This is a common thought going on in the new mothers right now.
Right. So, there are guidelines from all over the world which have re-emphasized again and again that we want to have zero screen time for a child less than 2 years. That is what is recommended by all professional organizations. The only exclusion is when the little one wants to have a video call with, say, a grandparent who lives very far away, or with a parent who's not living at the moment with the baby. So that is the only exception, and we say keep it as brief as possible. Why is it that so? It is because it has been seen that children before the age of 2 years learn best by social interaction. And as I said before, the brain is in a learning phase. So if the child gets the thrill of entertainment or leisure through the gadget, there's a chance that he would not leave it as he grows up, and he becomes more of a passive learner rather than an active learner. So before 2 years, we would say a strict no no. What about after 2 years? After 2 years, we say yes, children can learn a little bit out of educational media programs, provided the parent is sitting with them and trying to explain the program. For example, A for apple, or this is the picture of apple, this is the picture, instead of a book, you may sometimes decide to use a software program to teach, but then you should be there to teach. It's only with the interaction of the parent that the child would learn something, and here too, we would say not more than 30 minutes to a maximum of 1 hour. This is what we would say co-viewing educational content. Definitely don't give them the mobile phone to browse through all the sites. That's definitely not recommended. It's only after the age of 6 years, when you have really made them understand the digital media rules, you may allow them to view independent programs, again making sure that they are not violent programs. And the best again at this age would be to co-view. Remember, the screen can interfere with physical activity, and the WHO recommends 3 hours of physical activity for a child above 2 years. So the gadget itself can interfere with that, apart from actually delaying speech and even social interaction. Let me quickly share a story. I had this 3-year-old child coming to me who was diagnosed as autism because the child was not speaking, right? And autism is a neurodevelopmental disorder where there's a problem in social interaction. The child's speech is delayed, and the child does repetitive actions which are called stereotypic action, that they might move the wheels of a toy truck again and again, and they're usually disconnected with the other people and family members. So the mother came to me and said, "Doctor, my child has been diagnosed as autism, but I want to share with you that the last 3 years I have been very busy with my work, and most of the time the child has been looked after by a helper in the house. And I just noticed that the helper would actually put on the TV and watch the serials and would not interact with the child. So if you think I take a break for a month, would it help?" Now, that was a difficult question for me to answer. And I said, "It may or may not help, but why don't you just take the chance?" So she agreed to take a break, sabbatical from her work. And believe it or not, within 3 weeks, the child started speaking. So I can tell you how much the digital device was actually interfering with the language acquisition. And yes, this child did not have autism, but as the social interaction was hampered, the language was hampered because of the digital devices, the child looked like one suffering from autism.
Thank you so much, ma'am. I think that is very, very helpful. So, I see a question here from Kanika. Can you give me some tips to have a sleeping schedule for a 9-month-old? Is it even desirable? I think Isha also has a question here. My daughter is 3.5 months old. When and how to set up her routine? I think this was a common discussion I saw today, where people are asking, my baby is 6 months old. Is there a need for a routine? How are you guys managing? So, what do you suggest, and how can they start probably having a routine, or is it even required? I think that's the question.
It's actually very good to have a routine. But again, in gentle parenting, like I said, make it flexible. That's important. Now, when we start from a 6-month-old child, before the age of 6 months, when the child is on exclusive breastfeeding, we usually say follow demand feeding. That is what is really recommended. After the age of 6 months, when the child starts with complementary feeding, just coming to the meals part of it, it is a good idea to give the child 3 meals in a day, and in between, you could have snacks. The snacks, by snacks, I do not mean by any way chips, things like that. I mean healthy snacks, and most of these snacks are fruits, is what we recommend. So, so as I'm saying this, we could have the milk feeds. Of course, the breastfeeding continues till the age of even 3 years if the mother is getting breast milk. So apart from the breast milk, it's a good idea to actually sync the children's meal, the child's meal with the family meal. So the child gets used to that routine, and the meal times can become fun times. Obviously, a 6-month-old cannot sit on his own and definitely needs support while the meal time is there. But a child who's 8 months old, 9 months old, and even a year old can be put on the high chair during meal times. Or a child who can sit on his own, if you're sitting down, you can even make the child sit. So it's a good idea, and this would also encourage self feeding by the child. Usually, we say by the age of 1.5 years, the child should be encouraged to self feed. So, this is something which can be established. Then the second thing is about screen time, which I've been emphasizing again and again. So the most important thing for routine to be established is for the parents' screen time. That is going to be crucial. like I said before, at least 1 hour of undivided attention to the baby, playtime, ground time, when the parent sits on the floor and plays with the child with the mobile phone far, far, far away. So, if the parent can show to the child that this is the time when I have set this routine to spend time with you, it would be great. And when the child starts walking, taking the child out. I know during this COVID time and with the cases just rising up, it's difficult right now to take the child out. But if you have a terrace, I would strongly recommend to take the child on the terrace and spend at least 1 to 2 hours of some kind of a physical activity which can be spread over the day. So again, a sense of routine is set up. We go out for 1 hour in the morning and we go out for 1 hour in the evening outside. When we are playing with the ball, we are playing with the ring. So that again is a routine. So what I'm trying to say here is, don't be like an authoritarian or a tiger mom. Understand that this child needs 4 to 6 meals in a day, needs around 2 to 3 hours of physical activity, needs to sleep. And the sleep requirement actually varies with age. Now, for a child less than 1 year, roughly, I'm telling you average, the sleep requirement is actually around 15 hours. For a older child between around 1 to 2 years, it is around 12 hours. And after 2 to 3 years, it is around 10 hours. So this is a rough 15, 12, and 10 for you to remember. What about the afternoon nap? Up till the age of around 3 years, a 2 to 3 hour afternoon nap is okay. At the age of 3 years, 1 hour. After 3 years, an afternoon nap is not at all required. What we say is, we recommend a power nap. Sometimes when the child is too tired, can sleep for around 10 to 15 minutes. But in fact, napping in the afternoon may interfere with sleep time at night. Now, coming to the next question of sleep hygiene. Can we have some kind of a sleep routine? Definitely. I would go strongly for a sleep routine, even for the younger children. And what is that sleep routine? The sleep routine is switching off all the lights by a reasonable time, maybe 9 o'clock, maybe 10 o'clock. I would not recommend beyond that, right? When you switch off the lights, be sure that 1 hour before you switch off the light, you are off the digital gadgets, because all the digital gadgets secrete blue light. They transmit blue light, which interferes with the secretion of the hormone melatonin, which helps us to go to sleep. And apart from that, the digital media actually excites our mind. It's difficult to sleep at that time. So having some kind of bedtime routine, changing into a night dress, telling a story at bedtime, singing a lullaby, soothing words. If the child is a little older, asking the child what happened during the day and having a low tone of voice are all powerful ways to ensure that the child has a good sleep at night. So, yes, start setting up this kind of a routine about meals, about exercise, about sleep, about play early as 6 to 9 months. I hope I have answered the question.
Absolutely, ma'am. Thank you very much. I think you've answered so many of them. Like, I think this would be a doubt for many, many of them. Right? Shweta says, my child is 6 months old and has a habit of putting his finger in the mouth. We felt this is normal, but now we can see few of his skin in the finger peeling off. What can we do to distract this, or is it normal to for the skin to peel off like that?
Yes. So a certain amount of putting the finger in the mouth is in fact said to be a self-soothing skill. So when a child is alone or feeling bored, some of the children they tend to put the fingers in the mouth and soothe themselves. But their skin peeling off is a little alarming. Obviously, the child is sucking the finger quite hard. Now, the first thing I would like to see is, and probably you could consult your pediatrician, but also make sure that the child is not left alone for long periods of time. I know the parents can't be there with the child all the time, and it's good also to leave the child alone for a little period of time, though under supervision, so the child learns self-soothing. But if it's for long periods of time, then it could be a little disturbing. That is one, lack of attention. The second thing could be, is there something which is irritating the child's gum? Does the child have any fungal infection in the mouth? So you could have a look at that. Is there any ulcer in the mouth or itching in the mouth which the child is actually putting his fingers in to relieve? Is the child teething? Can be another cause when the child sucks the finger excessively. And please have a look at where the skin has peeled off. Is there any infection there? I would strongly suggest that once this lockdown is, really gets lifted, please go to your pediatrician and have a look. And if possible, go for a teleconsult. That would be really good. The best way to get the fingers out of the mouth is distraction. So showing a toy to the child, talking to the child, would probably giving a rattle to the child, a 6 month old you said, would really help the child to take out the fingers from the mouth. And sometimes we see that if we try to pull out the finger too often, the child sucks it more. So let us first find out whether there is a reason. In some cases, the finger sucking may also indicate hunger. So make sure the child is not hungry, is not left alone for a long time, has not wet the nappy. So all these things you need to take care of, give adequate attention, try to distract, look for any oral lesions. And if you cannot find a cause, please consult your pediatrician.
Thank you, ma'am. Ma'am, I think as we were discussing, about balancing with the in-laws. So Radhika has posted a message for you. Hi, ma'am. My baby is 3 months old. My mother-in-law is waiting for 6 months to get over, and then she wants to start bottle feeding for good milk flow. And baby sleeps long, so I have to indulge in home chores. We do have helpers at home, but still she wants me to do the house chores. And like I said, humne bhi bacche pale hai, we've done so much with so many responsibilities, so you also have to do it. I think it's been forced on her. So she says, I really get sad with such issues. My pediatrician has already said never introduce bottle to baby. Kindly guide me on how to create this balance now.
Yeah, I think you have a very fine pediatrician, and the support is going to be invaluable, especially during this period. As I said before, the pediatrician has said absolutely correctly that there should be no bottle, because bottle, causes a lot of infections. And actually, the baby does not need any top milk till the age of 1 year. That we are very, very clear about. Now, how to convince your mother-in-law? I know you're facing this challenge. Now, again, I would just reiterate by saying, can you take the help of your husband? That would be one thing. The second could be probably taking the help of another relative whom your mother-in-law likes and she listens to, and whom you think you can reach out to. Sometimes when we cannot convey what we want, they consider us to be, आप क्या जानते हो, आपको तो कुछ पता नहीं, हमने तो बच्चे पाले हैं, those typical statements. They probably may be more receptive to people of their own age. But be careful, this person should not be preaching the grandmother, because she may get offended. So this will be a person who's really, who really likes talking to her and she likes talking to that person. That would be another way out. The third, of course, is to sometimes tell her, not don't tell her my pediatrician wants to speak to you, but rather tell her, Amma, I'll be so happy if you come with me. I sometimes find it difficult to manage this baby during the pediatrician's visit. Could you please accompany me? आप मेरे साथ चलो ना, मुझे अच्छा लगेगा. Maybe, that kind of a friendly attitude may help you to get her to the pediatrician, and please inform the pediatrician, and the pediatrician could be telling you, and in fact she could be just hearing and listening. And I think we would be able to win the battle.
Definitely. I think even without questions, you've answered all their doubts, and you've covered everything with all these small, small tips that you've given. And they are all very, very thankful, ma'am. So I think we'll close today's session here. We had a very, very enlightening discussion. Personally, for me also, it was a great learning experience. So thank you so much, Dr. Preeti, for doing this session with us. And we would love to have you for more insightful discussions like these in future.
Sure, Anusuya, it was a pleasure to talk to you. And thank you so much for giving me this opportunity to make a difference to the children of India in a small way during this pandemic. Thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone, and have a great evening.